My hand shook as I balanced the stack of HOA violation reports outside Karen Whitaker's front door. The smell of fresh printer ink mixed with the cut grass perfection of Willow Creek Estates filled the air. But suddenly it turned my stomach. Just seconds ago, I'd been walking up the flagstone path with what passed for a smile these days, ready to hand-deliver the weekly enforcement logs to the president of our Homeowners Association. Now I stood frozen, unable to knock. "She's nothing but a free servant." Karen's voice floated through the slightly cracked door like poison honey. The words hit me harder than any $500 fine she'd ever slapped on my lawn. I'd heard her on the phone the moment I reached the porch. Normally, I'd ring the little silver bell she insisted on, for accessibility reasons. "Dear," but her tone was different tonight, sharp, confident, alive in a way I hadn't heard in 7 years. My heart slammed against my ribs. Who was she talking to? And why was she calling me a servant? I took one tiny step closer, praying the perfect gravel didn't crunch. The reports felt like they weighed 200 pounds in my trembling arms. "You don't understand," Karen continued, her laugh bubbling up like she was sharing the world's best inside joke. "I've got the perfect setup here. She handles every inspection, every fine collection, every damn community event. She pushes my wheelchair at board meetings, prints my agendas, even waters my stupid roses because the president can't bend down. And she never complains. Not once in 7 years. 7 years. 7 long, soul-crushing years since the accident at the community pool construction site that supposedly left her paralyzed from the waist down. 7 years since I quit my marketing director job downtown, canceled my gym membership, stopped seeing my friends, all because the board begged me to step up and help our poor, brave president keep the neighborhood standards high. I pressed my ear to the gap, breathing so shallow I could taste the metallic fear on my tongue. The papers wobbled dangerously. "Trust me," Karen went on, still chuckling. "It's better than hiring real staff. She works for free and actually thinks she's being a hero, sacrificing her whole life for the helpless HOA president who gave everything for this community." The world tilted. My knees threatened to buckle. This couldn't be real. But then I saw it through the narrow opening that turned my blood to ice water. Karen Whitaker, president of Willow Creek Estates, standing on her own 2 feet, not slumped in the motorized wheelchair she rode everywhere, not gripping the armrest like her life depended on it. She was pacing the marble floor of her home office in a silk blouse and tailored slacks, phone to her ear, gesturing wildly like any healthy woman in her 50s. Her back was straight. Her steps were smooth. Nothing about her looked broken. The reports slipped from my numb fingers, but I caught them before they scattered across her perfect porch. The sudden movement made the porch light spin. I had to lean against the white column to keep from collapsing. My HOA president, the woman I'd been lifting, pushing, catering to for 7 years, could walk. The woman whose condition I'd defended at every board meeting while she fine Mrs. Garcia, for a bird feeder 1 shade too bright, could walk. The woman who made me measure every blade of grass to exactly 2.5 inches because standards matter could walk. The best part, Karen's voice carried on, dripping with smug satisfaction, is she actually feels sorry for me. She thinks she's some kind of saint keeping the neighborhood together while I suffer. Little does she know I'm living my best life. I backed away as quietly as humanly possible, each step feeling like I was wading through wet cement. My mind reeled. Somehow, I made it down the path and into my own driveway without dropping the reports or screaming. I set the stack on my kitchen counter and stared at the top sheet. A $250 fine on Mr. Patel for parking his car 2 inches over the invisible line Karen had painted in her mind. The same kind of fine she'd been levying on me for years while I ran her errands like a loyal dog. I sank into a chair, body shaking. 7 years of my life. 7 years believing I was helping a brave woman recover from a tragic fall, so the HOA could keep running smoothly. How long had she been lying? And what else was she hiding behind that sweet, fragile smile she flashed at every meeting? 7 years ago, my life looked nothing like this prison of beige houses and invisible lines. I can barely remember the woman I used to be, the one who wore power suits, closed million-dollar deals, and actually had weekends. I moved into Willow Creek Estates right after my divorce, thinking a quiet suburban community would be the fresh start I needed. Karen had just been elected president. We were friendly then. She invited me to barbecues, praised my marketing ideas for the annual festival. Then came the community pool project. I remember that Tuesday like a scar. Karen was inspecting the scaffolding in her fancy heels, always the martyr who did everything herself. One moment, she was posing for the neighborhood newsletter. The next, the whole thing collapsed. The ambulance sirens still echo in my nightmares. At the hospital, the doctor told the board the spinal damage was severe. She'll never walk again without full-time assistance, he said, voice gentle but final. I was the only one without a full-time job at the time, freshly divorced. Flexible schedule, so the board turned to me. Laura, you're our hero. Karen needs someone she can trust. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought community meant sacrifice. I had no idea I was signing my life away to a con artist in a power suit. That night, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I called my boss and quit. I sold my downtown condo to cover the special assessment Karen pushed through for her recovery equipment. I thought I was saving the neighborhood. I thought I was being the perfect resident. I had no idea I was walking straight into Karen Whitaker's trap. My alarm screamed at 5 a.m. every single morning, not because I loved the sunrise over identical beige roofs, but because running Karen Whitaker's HOA empire was like managing a small dictatorship that never slept. First came the morning medications, 7 different pills she claimed kept her nerves stable after the accident. I'd measure them out with the precision of a pharmacist while she lay in bed, sighing dramatically about how hard it was to be the only one who truly cares. Then the hardest part, helping her into the wheelchair. Careful, Laura, dear, she'd coo as I positioned my arms under her shoulders. You're being a little rough again. My back. You know, I learned to lift her dead weight, almost 200 pounds of pure entitlement, without destroying my own spine. Some mornings when my back screamed from the day before, I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder how I'd do this for the rest of my life. But then I'd remember the board's grateful faces and Karen's teary, "You're the only one I can count on," and I'd swallow the doubt. We were both victims of that terrible accident, right? The neighborhood needed us. After getting her settled, I'd help her wash and dress in the soft pastel outfits she insisted made her look approachable yet authoritative. Not that blouse. Laura, the lavender one. And make sure the buttons are perfect. The camera adds 10 pounds, and I must look strong for the residents. Breakfast was always the same: gluten-free toast, egg whites, and herbal tea with 2 drops of lemon. My appetite isn't what it used to be since the accident, she'd say while scrolling her phone. While she ate, I'd plan the day: laundry for the community center, grocery runs for board snacks, and preparing for her virtual physical therapy sessions with Dr. Mitchell, who conveniently never looked me in the eye. Twice a week, Dr. Mitchell would arrive with his fancy equipment. Karen's core strength is remarkable for someone in her condition, he'd tell me, and I'd beam with pride like a fool. Looking back, I remember the strange glances between them, the way Karen suddenly sat straighter, joked louder. "You two work so well together," I'd say. Dr. Mitchell would just smile tightly. Some patients respond better to professionals. Laura, afternoons belonged to the absurd rules that kept Willow Creek pristine. I'd drive around measuring grass to the exact quarter-inch Karen demanded. 2.5 inches prevents erosion and maintains property values. Dear, while she sat in her wheelchair on her porch looking tragic. I'd issue fines for bird feeders the wrong color, flags flown on the wrong days, even mailboxes that tilted 0.1 degrees. The residents hated me for it. Call me Karen's lapdog behind my back. I told myself it was for the greater good. Evenings were the loneliest. I'd help Karen prepare for bed, lifting her again, arranging pillows just so, then sit beside her reviewing the next day's agenda. She rarely wanted real conversation anymore. The accident changed me. Laura made me quieter. I understood, or at least I thought I did. By the time I crawled into my own bed around 10, I was hollow. No friends left. They'd stopped calling after the first year of me canceling everything. My world had shrunk to beige houses and Karen's endless demands. I thought this was what loyalty looked like. I thought I was being a good neighbor. I had no idea I was slowly disappearing. It started with small things I convinced myself I was imagining because I was exhausted. 3 months ago, I left Karen in her wheelchair on the porch while I ran to the store for her favorite organic lemons. When I returned, she was inside the kitchen, still in the chair, but facing the opposite direction. "How did you get in here?" I asked, setting the bags down. Karen blinked innocently. I wheeled myself. "Dear." Practicing independence like Dr. Mitchell says. It made sense on paper, but the kitchen island was too high for wheelchair reach. I'd measure it myself when we installed the accessible features. A few weeks later, I came home from grocery duty and found the community event binder on top of the 6-foot bookshelf in her office. No way she could have reached it from the chair. "Did someone visit?" I asked. Karen waved it off with a laugh. "You must have put it there yourself. Laura, you're always moving things when you clean." I stared at the binder. I knew I hadn't, but I was so tired. Maybe I really had forgotten. The strangest incident happened last month. Mrs. Garcia from across the street knocked early one morning, eyes darting nervously. "Laura, dear, is everything all right at Karen's? I've been seeing someone walking around her backyard late at night, near the windows. Tall, confident steps. I thought maybe she hired nighttime help." My blood ran cold. "Walking normally?" Mrs. Garcia nodded, embarrassed. "Yes, like a healthy person. But I know about her condition. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I heard soft footsteps downstairs in my own house. No, wait. They were coming from Karen's side yard through the open window. I crept to the fence. The house was dark. I waited. The next morning, I found fresh muddy footprints on Karen's back patio. Size 10 men's shoes? No, wait. They matched the new sneakers I'd bought her for therapy. Dr. Mitchell came by late for an extra session. She explained smoothly when I asked. But I remember my evening perfectly. No had come. Something was very, very wrong. After seeing Karen walking and hearing her call me her free servant, I knew the truth was uglier than any HOA fine. But I also knew I had to play the perfect neighbor while I dug. The next morning, I delivered her reports with my usual smile. "Good morning. Karen, how did you sleep?" "Terribly. Dear, the pain." You know, I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded and adjusted the thermostat exactly as she liked. While she ate, I searched her guest room office under the guise of organizing files. Hidden behind old tax returns, I found bank statements I'd never seen. A secret account in Karen's name receiving disability payments, over $2,000 a month for 7 years. Worse, regular transfers of $500 to R. Whitaker, her sister Rachel, the board treasurer. My hand shook so hard the papers rattled. Not only was she faking paralysis to collect benefits, she was siphoning HOA dues in her pocket and paying her sister to keep the lie alive. Printed emails between them from 2 years ago sealed it. "Laura is getting suspicious about the late-night calls. Make sure you only contact me during her grocery runs." Rachel's reply, "Don't worry. She's too trusting. Besides, she owes the community after questioning your leadership last year." They convinced themselves I deserve this. I photographed everything, put it back exactly, and left with a smile. Karen had turned me into her slave. Now I was going to turn the tables. Over the next week, I became a ghost in my own life, smiling at Karen, measuring grass, issuing fines, all while my mind raced with plans. When I told her I was running to the store for her specialty, she'd light up. Take your time. Dear, you deserve it. Now I understood why. On Thursday, I announced my usual grocery trip, parked around the corner, and crept back. Through the kitchen window, the wheelchair sat empty. I slipped around to the basement window, the one with the accessible ramp she never used. What I saw made my stomach drop. Karen on a treadmill, sweat flying, running at full speed. Next to it, a weight bench, resistance bands, even a full mirror setup for selfies. My president hadn't just been faking paralysis. She'd been secretly training like an athlete while I pushed her chair and took the blame for every ridiculous rule. I filmed 30 seconds on my phone, tears burning my eyes, then actually went shopping so nothing looked suspicious. When I returned, Karen was back in the chair, looking frail. "How was your trip?" she asked with fake concern. "Just fine," I lied, smiling the smile that now felt like a weapon. I spent 3 days planning the perfect takedown. I needed ironclad proof, video, documents, witnesses, so no one could call it, he said. She said, Mrs. Garcia was the only person I trusted. When I showed her the treadmill video and bank statements in her kitchen, her face went white. "Oh, Laura, I knew something was off. But this? She's been stealing from all of us while you broke your back for her." "I need your help," I said. "I can't do this alone. Anything, dear." Friday morning, I told Karen I was heading to the store again. Mrs. Garcia waited around the corner in her car. 30 minutes later, we pulled into Karen's driveway. I had my phone recording from the moment we stepped inside. "Karen," I called cheerfully. "Forgot my wallet. Be right back." No answer. The wheelchair sat empty in the living room. Mrs. Garcia and I exchanged a look. "Basement," I whispered. We crept down the stairs. The treadmill hummed. "Karen," I called louder. The machine stopped. Scrambling sounds. "I'm coming down," I announced. Karen's panicked voice floated up. "Laura, wait." I fell out of the chair. "I'm on the floor. I can't get up." Mrs. Garcia nodded. We kept going. At the bottom, Karen lay dramatically on the mat in workout clothes. Sweat pouring, trying to look helpless. "Please, Laura, help me back into the chair. You know I can't stand." I held my phone steady. "Stand up." "Karen, I know you can." For one long frozen second, we stared at each other. Then the mask cracked. Karen rose smoothly, brushing dust off her leggings like she was at the gym. "Fine," she spat, all sweetness gone. "You caught me." "Yes, I can walk. Have been for over 3 years." Mrs. Garcia gasped. "How could you do this to Laura, to all of us?" Karen laughed. "To sound ugly. Do this? She owed me. After everything I've done for this neighborhood, I deserve help. Laura signed up the day she moved in. This way I keep my power and she stays busy. Win-win." I kept recording, voice steady. "You embezzled disability payments and HOA funds. You paid your sister to stay quiet." Karen's eyes narrowed. "So what? You would have left if you knew I was fine. This way I got everything I wanted." That's when Rachel burst through the side door. Face pale. "What's going on?" she squeaked. "The truth," I said, still filming. "Your sister just admitted she's been faking paralysis for 3 years and stealing from the association." Rachel looked from Karen to me to Mrs. Garcia. "Laura, I can explain. Explain the $500 a month. Explain the emails calling me too stupid to notice." Rachel's mouth opened and closed. Karen stepped forward, rage twisting her face. "Rachel, you were supposed to call first." "I did. You didn't answer." "Because I was working out." "You idiot." Mrs. Garcia stepped between us. That's enough. Laura, we're leaving, and we're calling the police. Over the next 2 weeks, everything unraveled faster than Karen could issue a fine. I handed the police my videos, bank statements, the emails, everything. They arrested Karen for disability fraud and discovered she'd embezzled over $120,000 in HOA dues and disability payments she wasn't entitled to. But the real bombshell came during the investigation. Karen hadn't just been faking for money and power. She'd been living a double life, sneaking out at night to meet the HOA treasurer, a married man she'd been seeing for a year. The police interviewed him. He'd thought she was single, a fitness coach who worked from home. They'd gone hiking together last weekend while I was measuring his lawn for violations. The irony tasted sweeter than any victory. Rachel was charged as an accomplice. In court, she finally cracked, sobbing that Karen had convinced her I'd been planning to cause trouble and deserved to be punished. She said Laura was too independent before she moved here. This kept her focused on what mattered, serving the president. I never planned anything except a quiet life. Karen had invented an entire narrative to justify treating me like property. The legal process dragged 6 months, but the verdict was glorious. Karen got 2 years in prison and was ordered to repay every stolen dollar plus interest. Rachel received probation and was banned from any HOA board forever. The best part wasn't even the jail time. It was the look on Karen's face when the judge read the sentence. Pure, delicious panic. No more fake tears. No more but my condition. Just a woman who'd finally been forced to stand on her own 2 feet and face the consequences. The neighborhood exploded with relief. Residents who'd been fined into oblivion started showing up at my door with casseroles and apologies. We had no idea, they said. You carried all of us. Mrs. Garcia hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. You did what none of us had the courage to do. I sold my house in Willow Creek Estates the week after sentencing. The money, plus the restitution check, bought me a little condo downtown with no HOA, no beige rules, no invisible lines. It was tiny compared to the suburban McMansion I'd left, but every square foot felt like freedom. My old boss from the marketing firm saw the news and called immediately. Laura, we have an opening. Not the same title, but it's a fresh start if you want it. I took it the same day. On my first morning back in an office after 7 years, I wore a real power suit again. Staring in the mirror, I barely recognized the strong, clear-eyed woman looking back. The girl who disappeared into Karen's shadow was gone. In her place stood someone who had survived hell and come out swinging. As I walked into the new office building that morning, I smiled, the first real smile in years. My real life was just beginning. No more 5 a.m. pill counts. No more measuring grass like it was nuclear material. No more lifting a liar who'd call me her free servant behind my back. The HOA dissolved Willow Creek's board after the scandal. Residents voted in a simple set of reasonable guidelines instead of a dictatorship. Karen's name became legend, the cautionary tale parents whispered to new neighbors. Whatever you do, don't let another Karen Whitaker take over. Every time I drove past the old entrance, I felt a little surge of dark satisfaction. The woman who'd spent 7 years pretending she couldn't stand had finally been knocked off her high horse, permanently. And the free servant she'd underestimated? I was free, truly free. I started a small blog, Surviving the HOA Karen, sharing my story anonymously at first, then with my real name when the views exploded. Residents from across the country wrote in, "You gave me the courage to fight my own board. I recorded my Karen too. Thank you." The comments were better than any courtroom victory. One night, Mrs. Garcia called me, laughing. "Laura, you'll never guess. Someone just put up a giant political flag right where Karen used to live. No fine in sight." We both howled until we cried. Looking back, The darkest humor is how obvious the signs were once I stopped believing the lie. The remote on the high shelf. The muddy footprints at midnight. The way Karen's pain magically vanished when no one was watching. She'd built an empire on a wheelchair she never needed, and I'd been the engine that kept it running. But the sweetest revenge wasn't the prison sentence. It was the moment she realized her perfect setup had collapsed, because the free servant finally stood up. I stood up, and the entire neighborhood stood with me. If there's one lesson I learned in those 7 brutal years, it's this: never mistake silence for weakness. Never let a smiling tyrant convince you that your life is worth less than their comfort. And never, ever trust an HOA president who can't look you in the eye when she says it's for the good of the community. Because sometimes the real hero isn't the one pushing the wheelchair. It's the one who finally tips it over and walks away smiling. My real life was just getting started, and it felt damn good to stand on my own 2 feet.